Alright guys, we got some more NumPy to do. This time we're going to be working with some calculations, and you should see these comments, and we're going to be going through these comments one at a time and just doing what they tell us to do. I'm going to go ahead and type a couple things that we're going to need here. So some of the things we're going to be using is we'll have an array dot in dim, and that will give us the dimensions. And then I'll give you another one, array dot shape. That will give us the shape of the array. Then we have another one, array dot in bytes, and that will give us the file size. I think I called it bytes right there, so I'll call it bytes here. What else do we need? Size, array dot size. I think that's right. Yes. And that will give us number of elements. I'm going to make this a capital S here and a capital D. So we have dimensions, shape, bytes, and elements. That is 1, 2, 3. Oh, data type. And I'm going to put data type right next to bytes because this, I don't know, they kind of depend on each other. Array dot, what is it? It is D type. And that will give us the data type. Alright, so that's going to be, those things are going to be needed in the following. I didn't type them in the comments, but there they are for you to type out. Okay, so just to start off with, it says import NumPy as MP. So that one's pretty much a freebie, so what all you're going to need to do for that one is just delete this comment here, and that's going to be your first thing. I'm going to put a comment next to this. This gives us access to NumPy as NP. Okay. All right. Next thing. Follow the comments to complete the assignment. All right. It says create a NumPy array with 5 numbers called A and print it out. Okay. So let's do, let's say we want to use capital A, so we'll use A is equal to, and then we call NumPy doing np.array, and then this is the part where we actually make the array. The array goes in between these parentheses here. So we're going to use square brackets, and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, you don't have to be as creative as I am, or you can be more creative, it doesn't matter. Okay, it says create a NumPy array with 5 numbers, check, and print it out. So print, and I'm just printing out my array, so I'm just doing capital A right there. So let's run this. And it prints out. So you always want to run your program to check and make sure everything's working correctly. And that is, so we can continue. Remember, if you don't run it and you do a whole bunch of coding, you're going to come up with a bunch of errors, and it's going to be really frustrating. That's why it's kind of important to run it one at a time. Okay. Then it says add 3 to every number in your array and print it out. All right, so this is kind of what we were talking about last assignment. Was one of the really powerful things about arrays is you can actually use math across the entire thing without having to break it apart. So adding 3 to every number in this is going to be pretty simple. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take A and make it equal to A plus 3. That's going to go to each item each element, and it's going to add 3 to every single one of them. And then it wants us to print it out, so let's print capital A, and let's see what it looks like here. Okay, so see it has the first one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it adds 3 to each one. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. All right, so we're moving on to the next part here. It says print out the following information about your array A. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to try and make things neat. So I'm going to say print, and then I'm going to say information. And this is a string. I don't want to print the variable. So I'm printing out some information on array A. Information about array A. Alright, now what information does it want? Well, it wants to know the size. That's how many objects are in the array. And then it also wants to know the dimensions. Why did I put DE? So it's DI. I'm going to have to change that. It's going to want to know the dimensions. DI, probably spelled it wrong on all of them because I think I was copying and pasting, but that's okay. Dimensions, shape, data type, and bytes. Okay, so it's going to want to know all of these things. And we're going to have to do that with this part up here that I showed you. So instead of using array for each one of these, we're going to use capital A because that's the one we're printing out. The array goes here, and then what you want to know is the next part. So A dimensions, A shape, and just so on and so forth. Okay, now in the past we had printed out like each one of these. We would do like A dot dimensions like that, I think. A or in the front. And what that would do is it would print out like the dimensions on the next line. So if I run that, it's going to do it. It's going to say information about array A. But I want to put it all on one line, and I'm going to show you how to do that. It's going to make it a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to leave that here just for a second, and we're going to try and put this all on one line of code. And then I want to have them each print out one after the other after the other. Okay, so to make a new line, you can do \n. So that means size is going to go on the next line. Dimensions is going to go on the next line. Shape, data type, and bytes. Okay, so if you run this, it's gonna take each one of these. It's gonna stick them on their own line by themselves. You'll see that they're gonna print out vertically, just like that. Now we just need to stick the information right after that for each one of these. So at the end of this, I'm going to do %, and then inside is in here is where I'm going to put all of the objects that I want to know. So the first one is size, so that is A dot size. That one's pretty simple, comma. Then the next one is shape, so I'm going to do A dot shape, another simple one to remember. Then it wants to know data type. A dot D type is that one. Then the next one is, oh, did I get it out of order? Let's see, size. Oh, the next one was actually size then dimensions, so let me put one in between here. A dot dimensions, so that is in dim. Okay, so it says size, dimensions, shape, data type, and then bytes. Okay, so then I'm going to do A dot, and then that one is in bytes. Okay. All right. So these are all of the things I want to reference. You'll see that they're up there and they're also listed here. So I had to just make sure that they're in the right order. Size, dimensions, shape, data type, and bytes. Now if I run this before I finish this off, it's going to throw some errors. So each one of these needs to correspond inside of here. So what I'm going to do is right next to size, I'm going to say %s. I want to know it as a string. Then dimensions, I'm going to put %s. I also want that to be a string, and these are all going to be strings. So just to kind of reference what's happening here is what it's going to do. It's going to print off information array A. Then it's going to go to the next line. It's going to say size, and it's going to look for a string, and the string it's going to find is the size, and it's going to match it up right there, and it's going to print it out. Then it's going to do the next line, dimensions, and then it's going to do the dimensions of array A, and it's going to put it there, and then it's just going to keep doing that. So let's run this and see if we get all the information that we're wanting. And it says the size is 5. We know that to be correct. We put 5 numbers. There's only one dimension here. It's only got one array. The shape is 5 comma and then nothing. That's right, because we only have one row. Yeah, one row. And then, 5 rows of one column. No extra columns. And then it says data type, which is how is it storing the information. It's defaulting to integer 64. And then the size is 40 bytes. Now, if you have big programs, you can change. If you have lots of information to deal with, and you know you don't need that many spaces, you want to use less memory, you can change the integer to like integer 16, and it'll save you a lot of space. And just for really huge programs, that's important to save time. Okay, it can make a big difference when you're multiplying by like thousands, but if you're just doing 1 or 2, it really doesn't matter. We're only going to do 1 or 2 here. Okay, so we have completed that one. Printed out. Oops, perfect. And it's just loading. Okay, so now it says create another NumPy array with 5 numbers and call it B and print it out. Now instead of just retyping everything, I'm going to use my copying pasting skills here. So I'm going to copy line 12. I'll put it down here on 21. And instead of it being A, I want this to be B. And I'm going to choose different numbers here. I'm going to pick up where I left off. I'm going to do 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then it says, okay, I'm going to run, and it says print it out. So then we want to do print B. All right, now the reason why I'm going to run this right this second is because I don't want to add any errors in if I made a mistake, which there shouldn't be because I just copy and pasted it. So run this, and there it is, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then it says print out the following information about array B. And you'll notice this is exactly like the one up here, even with the same misspelling. I'll change that in y'all's version. So right here, I'm going to do the exact same. I'm going to copy this line 18, and I will paste it. Apparently I didn't copy it. Copy, paste. Okay, now if I run this one, it's going to print out the information for A. So I just need to change all of those A's to B. B, because this is my new array, array B. The size and data type and all that stuff should be the same because they're very similar. Okay, so I'm going to run this again. And it says information array B. It's got my B, array B here. Size 5, dimensions 1, has all that good information there. Perfect. All right, so moving on to the next one here. It says multiply array A with array B. Again, that's going to be really simple because we're using an array. Otherwise, if you were using a list, you have to pull each one of those objects out, multiply them, and go from there. So what I'm going to do is it just wants it to print it out, so we don't actually need to store any of this information. So I'm just going to say print, and then I'm going to take A and multiply it with B. So that's my array A times my array B, and it's going to print it out. Let's see what that's going to look like. All right, so it has 24, 35, 48, 63, and 80. So you can verify that those are correct. So it says 8 times 10 is 80, 7 times 9 is 63, 6 times 8 is 48, and then just so you can see, it just took each item in the array and multiplied them with each other. Very quick, very simple, very useful. Now, number 29, line 29 that I'm looking at here. Yours could be different if you have multiple lines, but this says create a multi-dimensional, and I spelled that word wrong, dimensional, create a multi-dimensional array with, y'all get to see me fix stuff right here on the fly, with dimensions 2, 3 called C and print it out. Okay, so I'm going to make another array. This one's going to be called C. So C is equal to array. Oops. Let's go. We can double check np.array. So NumPy.c, array is, and then in between these parentheses is where you create your array. So a multi-dimensional array is basically 2 arrays inside of one. So I'm going to have my square brackets. This is my big array, and inside of here I'm going to put 2 more arrays. So I need another square bracket and another square bracket. So I'm separating it out like that so you can kind of see what's happening here. So inside of this array there's going to be 2 other arrays, and it wants a 2, 3. So that should be, let's see, let's just do, we need 3 numbers in there, so let's do 11, 12, 13, and we'll do 14, 15, 16. So here's an array, here's an array, and they're both inside of this big one. Okay, so I'm going to squish it down now so you can see what it would look like. Sometimes when you have those square brackets right next to each other, it gets kind of confusing. So that's why I separated it out. I don't know if I made it more complicated for you or not, but there it is. It says create a multi-dimensional array. Did that. 2, 3. Array called C. That's the name of it. So let's just, and then now it says print it out. So I'm going to do print C. Run this and make sure this is still working. Let's see what a multi-dimensional array looks like. So a multi-dimensional array has 2 things. It says 11, 12, 13, and then the next array 14, 15, 16. Okay. Divide array C by 2 and print it out. Again, this should be fairly straightforward. We will do print. We just want to print it out. It doesn't tell us to store anything. And what are we doing? We're taking C and we're dividing it by 2. Alright, so let's run that. What does that look like? 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, and 8. Just what you would expect. Now, all we have to do to finish this assignment is get the information about array C. So I'm going to grab this line here and I will paste it. And instead of using array B, we're doing array C. And we want to know the size of array C, the dimensions of array C. Control Z undoes, it helps, very helpful. Shape, data type, and bytes. Run. And that should be it. Let's see if we got it. So you can see this is a 2-3, the data type, the size of it, how many elements there are, the dimensions. Awesome. All right, that's going to complete this assignment. What you're going to need to do is take screenshots of your work, turn it in. Don't forget to use the link as well to turn it in so I can check your work. And you guys be safe.